Mid-year mayhem is just around the corner, and I wanted to give you some tips on ESO PvP that I've learned over years of playing the game. I have one goal from this video: that you will walk away with the clear idea of what you need to do to be successful in ESO PvP. I'll be talking about the right class, skills, gear, combat basics, and important stats to aim for. I'm also going to put links in the description of my PvP builds, which will be updated for mid-year mayhem, and if you get something out of this video, do me a big favor and hit that thumbs up. It's time to stop getting farmed and start dominating in ESO PvP. Here's how you do it. Before we continue with the video, I wanted to share about our sponsor, Frozen Flame and Dare Drop. Frozen Flame is a fantasy MMORPG that shares similarities to other survival games. With so many MMOs, why should you choose Frozen Flame? It's because it has a unique dynamic weather system which constantly changes. Rainstorms, snowstorms, and other weather affecting gameplay. You'll need to adapt your strategy to the weather if you want to succeed or die. Oh wait, there's more. You can now also complete dares in Frozen Flame via a new platform called Dare Drops. Dare Drops allows you to complete a dare and earn rewards. If you're up for a challenge, check the link below and earn some exclusive Frozen Flame artwork simply by completing the Frozen Flame tutorial. Link to Dare Drops and Frozen Flames in the description below. Now, back to our video. The first step in becoming a PvP sweatlord is being honest with yourself, capabilities, and reaction times. You 100,000% need to pick a build that matches both your playstyle and your combat capabilities. PvP is all about burst, damage, and healing. With that playstyle, the slower you react, the more difficult you may have with certain classes and builds. If you have dad-like reflexes, it's okay, you can still be good at PvP, but don't expect to pick up a magic Nightblade 1vx build and assume you will dominate. Here's my breakdown of each class quickly with a tier list linked below if you want more details. Dragonknight is up first. Consider this the meathead of the Elder Scrolls Online, rocking a tribal arm tattoo, screaming, "God bless America," Ramboing into combat. This is your build. Not to call any of my viewers out or anything, this is the most dominant class for the average player, with insane burst healing, damage both AoE and single target, along with ungodly survivability. DK, whether you play magic, stamina, or hybrid, is amazing and currently my favorite class in PvP. America! Okay, you get the point. Moving on. The Nightblade remains what I consider now either 1, 2, or 3 on the tier list depending on the person's using its skill level. You need ultra fast reaction time, mandatory chugging of Diet Mountain Dew in your mom's basement to be the apex predator on the battlefield. Nightblades have the highest burst damage, single target, and AoE, along with insane survivability with stealth only if you play it right. If you're a 40-year-old having a midlife crisis driving your Corvette to elementary school to pick up your kid, I highly would not recommend this build for you. Next up is the Sorcerer, and speaking of high reaction times builds, this is one. This class, whether you play mag or stam, has insane burst potential but is absolutely punishing for beginners. Why? It's the only class without a reliable burst heal. But Deltia, I can use my pet Twilight Matriarch. Okay, sure, but that will get nuked down in 10 seconds, leaving you exposed and likely dead. Pick up this class if you love high mobility, but be warned, it's unforgiving. Next up is the Templar, and what remains what I always recommend for beginners. It's super durable, extremely easy to play, and I like it for the average player. Simply throw on the skill Living Dark, Sword and Shield, hold block, and stop panicking when sweatlords start attacking you. Templar also currently excels at range damage with the strongest execute in the game, and it's a great choice if you want to click 2 or 3 buttons and not get smoked. Next up we have the Warden. Lord Warden! Think of the Warden as basically just a gassed up Templar. Their crowd control and buffs bring tons of utility to the group, and they are currently meta healers and group buff players. They are nearly mandatory in high-octane groups, but do well solo as mag or stam. Very good currently and have great self-healing, though lack high-end resource sustain. Next up, we have the Necromancer, which is very weak in the current meta. Blast Bones, which is your main delayed burst tool, has all sorts of problems landing and hitting targets. Deep Fissure Warden skill simply is a better version of them, and the Nightblade right now in the current meta with Rush of Agony is a better bomber. With low mobility, predictable damage, and ways to get major vulnerability outside of the Necromancer skill lines, you just don't see a whole lot of them on the battlefield anymore. Moving along, we're going to have the Arcanist, and depending on when you watch this video, the Arcanist will be dropping in June for ESO. As of the making this video, I played on the PTS for hours and liked the class for its status effect damage and using arena weapons combination. Outside of that, when I played it, it feels pretty lackluster, but this honestly could change, so make sure to check the website and I'll update the builds when it's released. Okay, so you have an idea of what you should put. You like to Rambo in, screaming God bless America? Dragonknight. You want to play something stealthy and you're really high skill cap, the Nightblade. You want to zip around in the open field, the Sorcerer. And if you have slow as molasses 70-year-old grandma reflexes, the Templar. So we're going to set up our build logically, regardless of what level or what class you have. Here are the basics and what you have to do to be successful in PvP. When you start PvPing, I highly, and I mean highly, recommend setting up your build for survivability first, and we're going to start with the skills. Why? No one has fun dying every 3 seconds and getting frustrated and quitting. It's kind of like me when I play first-person shooters against 13-year-olds that know life the game. Turn corner, dead. Turn corner, dead. This is real fun. Alt F4, back to picking flowers and Craglorn, I go. Here's the no BS skills that you need, whether you're going to get them for your class or outside skill line. The most important skill is having an armor buff that grants major resolve. This will provide roughly 6,000 physical and spell resistance, which equates to roughly 7 to 8% damage reduction. Here's some examples if you don't know. Dragonknight, spiked armor. Nightblade, Shadow Barrier passive, Sorcerer Lightning Form, Templar Rune Focus, Warden Frostcloak, Necromancer Bone Armor, and Arcanist Fate Woven Armor. Now you can stack this major version of the armor buff with the minor version. This comes from the Alliance War skill line, Assault and Support, and is Resolving Vigor. This will give you right around 3,000 increased resistances, which can stack with the other major, giving you almost nearly 9,000 resistances and a lot of damage reduction. Another strength of Resolving Vigor, and typically these armor buffs, is they only need to be cast right around 20 seconds, so you're not going to have to do a whole lot of babysitting with them to get really high damage reduction. And also something to note, if you play a magic build, it's also important to have a decent stamina pool to sustain Resolving Vigor at least every 20 seconds. It's a decent heal over time, and with the hybridization, the game will now look at your max stats, regardless if you're magic or stamina. So magic users can get really good healing from a stamina-based heal, assuming your spell damage and max magic are really high. Have you ever fought those super annoying rock humpers that seem to have a speed hack on? Well, maybe they do. But here's how you can get really fast, and a great tip and something you need to build for that will dramatically increase your survivability and sometimes your damage. That's mobility. You can get access to Major Expedition buff, increasing your speed by 30%. Most classes have some form of Major Expedition built in. Here's some examples. Dragonknight, Fiery Grip, Nightblade, Path of Darkness, Sorcerer, Lightning Form, Warden, Falcon, Swiftness, Arcanist, Fleet-Footed Gate, and the Templar and the Necromancer, sadly nothing in class for them. You can also get Major Expedition from gear sets, bow passive when you dodge roll, and even potions. Two specific instances of Major Expedition stand out from the rest. The first being Race Against Time for Sigic Order. This gives you a brief boost in speed and also removes snares and mobilizations. Keeps you from getting locked in place and eventually killed. It's also important to note about crowd control. So what happens when you get stunned? You break free. You use and consume stamina to break free, and it gives you about 7 seconds of CC immunity. This will be shown visually on your character with a little circle around your feet. It's also important to note that immobilizations and crowd control are two separate mechanics. So hypothetically, you could be stunned and break free, and also be immobilized immediately following, requiring you to break free and do a dodge roll, consuming a massive amount of stamina. No stamina to break free, no stamina to dodge roll, that equals deady spaghetti. My other favorite mobility tool is currently Vampire Skill Elusiveness. This gives you a semi-teleport away in Major Expedition. You can use it back-to-back to clear massive distances quickly, and for builds like the Dragonknight or Templar, who are in nature very sluggish, it's a perfect combination. Speaking of Vampire, it comes with some major upsides and downsides. The pros are, while at least stage 3 vampirism, the Undeath passive will give you 30% damage mitigation the lower your health goes. You can also get 300 weapon or spell damage from leaving Sneak, Invisibility, or Mistform for 6 seconds. The downsides are a lot more fire damage and much harder resource sustain. I particularly think Vampire works great on Stealth Nightblades, Magic Dragonknight, or anything else that has good resource sustain built in but lacks mobility. Last thing about mobility, you can stack Major and Minor Expedition along with the Swift Jewelry trait. Gold quality gives you 7% increased movement speed by each piece worn, and remember there is a sprint speed cap of 200%, and you can find that in your character screen. Trust me on this, the simplest way to increase your survivability and mostly the fun factor in specifically cyrodiil is just to be really fast. Do Major Expedition, 3x jewelry pieces that are swift at purple quality or greater, and you will have a dramatic increase in your survivability because you can simply get away, line of sight, heal yourself, resource sustain, wait from a potion or an ultimate, and get back in the fight. Okay, you got an armor buff for damage reduction. Major expeditions so you can run away and give a tree a hug. Next up is basic burst healing. You need to monitor your health at all times. This isn't PvE where someone's gonna snuggle with you, tank everything for you, heal you, and give you butterfly kisses before bedtime. This is PvP. All the above is down to you. First pro tip is, for the love of Talos, turn your health bar on when injured. This can be done in the gameplay settings, and it will display over your head. When you fall below 70% or lower of health, stop what you're doing and heal. I constantly see people at 25% health, just light attacking, beaming, wandering around. Heal yourself! Told you, clip that! A sweat lord like me will destroy you little lambs if we see this. Something else to be aware of is actually where I visually look. Typically, I look at my potion and my ultimate along with my health bar in kind of a triangle. I piggyback my potion and a defensive ultimate for survivability. So I'm always looking there. Health bar, potion, ultimate. Do I have one to survive? Potion will give me a flood of resources and hopefully health if I'm using tripods, allow me to survive a little bit longer. A defensive ultimate maybe allow me to survive 5 or 6 seconds longer. You just never know. Maybe a big huge ball group comes to save you. Maybe someone just gives up because you're super annoying and tanky. These are the things that will keep you alive in the fight and having ha fun. If you don't know some good burst healing, here's some examples per class. Dragonknight, Coagulating Blood, Nightblade, Healthy Offering, Sorcerers, Twilight Matriarch, Templar, Breath of Life, Warden, Arctic Blast, Necromancer, Resistance Flesh, and Arcanist, Revolving Rune Men. Combine your class burst heal with the skill we already talked about, Resolving Vigor, to get good heals over time, combined with something that will pop you up when you're low. Don't get tunnel vision and keep attacking when your HP is low. Turn the visual cues on and heal. Trust me, it's stupid simple, will make a huge difference. Final thing on the skills before shifting to gear is crowd control, which I talked about earlier. CC, stunning a target, serves a few purposes for us. It can be used to prepare a target for a kill shot. Load them up with damage over times, damage, stun, execute. It can be used as escape tool when taking a ton of pressure. Stun, zip away. It's a great offensive and defensive mechanism for teammates. Stun, CC, drain other players' resources, and use that small window of opportunity to burst them down. All right, here we go. Lord Warden, 3, 2, 1, Debo. Whoa! Let's go! A rookie mistake is simply running in and stunning someone right away, specifically on a Dragonknight. What you want to do and how you want to use crowd controls for a kill shot is load some up with damage, pressure them till they're right around 70 or 60% HP, and then stun them when they're loaded up with damage. The reason why is you might get a second and a half, or who knows, they might be run out of stamina, and that will allow you to do damage, usually your burst damage tool, right then and there, just directly after you stun them, for a kill shot. If you do the opposite, you stun someone, they're crowd control immune, and they're running around basically being able to heal themselves constantly, how are you going to kill them? It's very hard. Use that short window for the absolute best way to kill someone. Here's some really good crowd control abilities if you don't know. Dragonknight, Fossilized, Nightblade, Mass Hysteria, Sorcerer, Streak, Templar, Binding Javelin, Warden, Arctic Blast, Necromancer, Bone Totem, and the Arcanist, Room of Colorless Pool. Quickly, here's an example of my magic Dragonknight skill bars. Front is I use Dual Wield. Shattering Rock for crowd control, Draw Essence for AoE damage and delayed damage, Flames of Oblivion to get spell critical buff, Holds and Whip for a main spammable, Fiery Breath to reduce armor, back bar I use an Ice Staff for block mitigation and range. First ability up is Volatile Armor for armor buff, Igneous Weapons for my weapon and spell damage buff, Elusive Mist for mobility, Resolving Vigor for a heal over time and additional armor, and Coagulating Blood for a burst heal. That's basically how you set up your bar. Got tons of examples on my website. But another thing to talk about briefly before this becomes a 4-hour long video is you need a source of weapon and spell damage buff. Usually you can get that from potions or skills in your class kit or outside. Another example is your spell and weapon damage critical buff. Those two things are really important to have. You can get the critical buff from Fighters Guild, Camouflage Hunter, and you can get the weapon and spell damage from Degeneration in the Mages Guild if you don't know your class specific. Moving on to what you probably want to know about choosing the right gear, because everyone thinks gear is the end all be all. The easiest way to explain gear is basically just to show you a chart. The chart is the efficiency method of setting up a build. It's not the only way, but one common meta loadout. You start with a 5-piece offensive gear set. So this chart is for my Magic Dragonknight, and we have a high burst damage set, Mechanical Acuity. It is only active when you switch to your front bar, which should be most of your offensive skills. Then you have a back bar set, currently Mara's Bomb, though will be replaced by Daedric Trickery, Daedric Trick Daddy, and update 38 because it's being nerfed. Once I flip to my back bar, I can get a cleanse with a huge burst heal. Then you have a mythic and a jewelry slot active at all times. Sea Serpent's Coil, along with the monster helm. And this is how you set up an efficient 2-bar build. Your goal is to find the sweet spot between damage, resource sustain, and healing. In this particular loadout, here's how it works. Mechanical Acuity carries my burst damage when I Rambo in. Bloodspawn has a resource sustain tool because the Dragonknight gets resources back when using ultimate via Battle Roar passive. Sea Sweat Coral is essentially 2 5-piece damage sets in one, and I counter the snare with Vampire Elusive Mist Mobility. My back bar defensive set is what saves my life when I'm in trouble and I need a burst heal and a cleanse, and 1-piece trainee just for extra health. Now I have high burst damage, great survivability, and resource sustain. You can also use arena weapons versus mythics in all sorts of different combinations, including 1-bar builds with Oaken Soul. Check the website for specifics, otherwise it'll be too many sets and combinations to list, but we can talk about in detail the thought process behind armor specifics. Weights. I prefer a lot of heavy and in general 3 pieces of heavy. Typically I run chest, legs, and helm if the item sets support it. Chest and legs I like because of the armor values, and reinforce gives me an enormous amount of armor with major and minor resolve up at all times. And if Bloodspawn procs, I'm well over 30,000 resistances with high damage. Traits. I'm not a big fan of Impenetrable and rarely run it if I can. The reason why, as a solo player, it doesn't provide much value to me. Even with super high Impenetrable, you can still get nuked by a stealth Nightblade, so what's the point? I'd rather have nearly free dodge rolls with well fitted, or lower block costs with sturdy. Another great option is Divine with the Warrior Mundostone because weapon damage also affects your healing. More on that later. It's pretty logical to go with 1 or 2 reinforced chest and legs. With me running 3 heavy, usually I run 3 of my main stats as my other armor. So I'll run 3 heavy. If I'm a magic user, I run 3 light. If I'm a stamina user, I'll run 3 medium. And then I have 1 extra piece, which you can imagine I run the counter to my main stat. I'm a magic user, I'm gonna run 1 heavy. I'm a medium armor stamina user, I'm gonna run 1 light. The reason why is you wanna take advantage of the Undaunted passive. Undaunted Metal gives you 6% raw stat, which is awesome if you use all 3 of the armor types. This is incredibly valuable in a hybrid world where you need both stat pools and both resources constantly. And then I usually run prismatic glyphs in my large pieces, which are head, chest, and leg. This gives you big tri-stats, which can help with resource sustain in a hybrid world. Can you imagine buying prismatic glyphs in this economy? Send me some through the mail at Deltiasgaming PCNA. Appreciate you. Even magic builds want a lot of stamina for breaking free, dodging, resolving vigor, and so forth. And that leads us up to stats to aim for. People constantly ask me about stats to aim for: penetration, max magic, weapon and spell damage, armor, health, and so on. So I'm gonna Barney level this for you, Deltia style. Health. The lower your reaction time and skill, the more health you need. When you increase your health, typically you lower your main stat, thus decreasing your damage and healing. Running around in cyrodiil with 18,000 health will be the worst experience of your life. Typically when I coach people, I start them at 32,000 health, I see the reaction times and I adjust from there. God's gift to the game, rock 22,000 health. Slow as molasses to break free, 40,000. Start high with training wheels on and lower as you learn. Next up is the age-old debate, the chicken or the egg. Which came first? Actually, it's penetration versus weapon or spell damage. Penetration in general gives you the most overall damage per stat. However, weapon and spell damage does not only add to your overall damage, but healing as well. Don't believe me? Great, let's do an experiment. Example number 1 of my magic DK, we will look at Coagulating Blood Heal Tooltip with the Atronach Mundostone, 8733. Example 2, we will look at the Lover Mundostone, which gives offensive penetration, 0 change. In example 3, we're going to go with a Warrior Mundostone, 9176. This is one of the reasons high-end players can run 2 5-piece damage sets that buff raw damage, because it increases your healing so significantly and your damage. Does that mean penetration is a dead stat? Absolutely not. It remains the most coveted and highest damage stat in the game for pure damage. But remember, you want to be a sweat lord. You want to rock no deodorant playing in your mom's basement and really triggered when you die and blame it on lag. And if that's the case, you need a good balanced stat pool because you want to heal and do damage. Your goal with penetration is typically 10 to 12,000, typically major breach built into your skills. And you can get tons of penetration from weapon traits to Balorg's Monster Helm and so on. For resource sustain, it goes back to the old health debate. More reaction time, better at the game, lower sustain you need. Same with stage 3 Vampire. Another trick that will help you with resource sustain, believe it or not, is leveling your alchemy and taking the medicinal use passive. This will increase your recovery via the potion passive. You'll also see a lot of my builds running dual wield on the front and frost staff on the back. This gives me a way to resource both sustain pools with fully charged heavy attacks. Depending on my build, I typically aim for a 1500 recovery or so. I generally run smoked bear haunch or jewels of misrue food. This gives me tri recovery and health. With hybrid gameplay, I find my survivability and sustain skyrocketing, though it will lower your damage in comparison to Bewood Sugar Skulls or Bi-Stat food. Another option is an incredible new Monster Helm's Roskas, which replaces Engine Guardian as the dominant two-piece resource sustain. Where my Engine Guardian at? Weapon and spell damage is up next and is pretty straightforward. I aim for right around 5,500 to 6,000 self-buff. You can do this the same sort of way. Mundustone, gear sets, major and minor buffs. Weapon enchants also increase this, as well as infuse jewelry, which will get very high. So breakdown, too long didn't read, 3,200 health depending on your reaction time, 10 to 12k pen with major breach, 1,500 recovery, around 5,500 weapon or spell damage, around 25% weapon or spell critical. The numbers will be different with or without CP. Is this video over yet? No, stick with me. I want to show you some clips in game to get your thought process going, how you can implement this when you go back to playing in PvP, specifically Ciro most of the time. So the basics of combat. PvP in ESO is the exact opposite of PvE if I haven't stressed that enough. It's all about short 3 to 5 second windows of burst damage and healing. PvE is about long-lasting fights, someone healing for you, providing resources for you, tanking for you, and no, I'm not going to insert a joke here. You get my point. You need to rewire your brain to act suddenly and violently. If you do not kill a target, reset and try again. The first way to do this is through buff cycling. It's your first priority and something to get used to. Just like a PvE sweat, you need to constantly be refreshing your buffs even when you don't anticipate any combat. Your armor buff, resolving vigor, weapon and spell damage buff, and so on. Why? Because when you get attacked unexpectedly, this will save you possibly 3 to 5 second global cooldowns, keeping you alive when you would have been dead. Make it a practice to go cycle your buffs even when you're roaming around picking flowers. Armor buff, resolving vigor, igneous weapon, noxious breath for molten weapon stacks, repeat. Don't tank your resources, but get prepared. You never know what's gonna get popping. Line of sight is up next, aka rock humping. This is where you find me fighting outside of Nickel and constantly running around hugging rocks with major expedition, which limits your ability to target me. It's so important to find something that you can line of sight and just survive another 1, 2, 3 seconds, because you never know, the enemy might just give up, a Zerg might right be behind you, or your friends might have a 500 Balorg Dawnbreaker to nuke the opponent. Alongside of rock humping and buff cycling, you need to constantly be evaluating your terrain. When I was in the army, 11 bang bang, I was constantly told about bounding and situational awareness. If combat happened right here, right now, where would I go to get cover and why? You need to do the exact same thing in PvP. Do I need to go find that tree and line of sight the AD bow users? The rock, do line of sight the EP Dragonknight block tanks? Or Alt F4 to avoid the DC ball groups? I'm just joking. Or am I? In all seriousness, constantly be thinking of where do I go next? Am I close enough that I can get away quickly? Being out in the wide open is dangerous unless you're a sorcerer and know how to zip out with streak. Now, it's all about burst damage and how to nuke down players. You can do this with a combination of gear and skill, but I'll use my Dragonknight for example. Your goal is to do as much damage in as short a window as possible. In group context, this clip will show you a bomb with our little team. We have one Soul Tether Nightblade, shifting standard DK, and corrosive armor DK. Our goal is to count down ultimate 3, 2, 1, drop. Soul Tether goes out, stuns the targets, provides a synergy. DK drops shifting standard along with Talons, providing 2 huge damage synergies. In me, the corrosive armor, DK pops it, it's 100% pen, and starts spinning whirling blades, destroying everyone in a few short seconds. This can also be done in solo context, and I'll use a Necromancer for a point of reference, though it's not the best in game, but this is what I'm used to using. Necros have a delayed damage tool, Blast Bones, so you can cast it, rip off a fully charged heavy attack on a two-hander to proc the follow-up passive, giving you 10% more damage. and a Dawnbreaker. If you do this correctly with a heavy attack, your weapon enchants, Dawnbreaker, and Blast Moan will all land in a split second. Combine this with a Balorg Monster Helm and Clever Alchemist, the burst window is incredibly violent, giving you a huge flood of weapon damage, penetration, exactly what you need in conjunctions with multiple forms of damage. If you do it right, poof, target eliminated. All right, that wraps it up. I went for a very long time. There's so much to explain. I could do 1,000 bazillion videos. So if you really want me to do this type of content, please leave me comments. YouTube loves them. They push this to everyone else and people can enjoy PvP. If you like specific builds or you want me to do Oakensoul or Gankers or whatever, also leave me a comment. Hit that thumbs up. It's free. Don't cost you anything. And go visit me at twitch.tv/Deltiasgaming where my mom claims I'm the best streamer alive. Thanks for watching.